they were more interested in keeping power than they were with telling the truth. And so we can't trust these people at all.
Welcome to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM for Tuesday, June 3rd. I'm Andrew Walworth, and I'm joined by RCP co-founder and president Tom Bevan and Washington bureau chief Carl Cannon. Well, yesterday, guys, the Justice Department launched an investigation into the pardons granted by Joe Biden to his family members and others. The investigation will look at whether Biden, quote, was competent and whether others were taking advantage of him through use of Autopen or other means. There's a congressional investigation going on as well, Tom. Is this just Trump trolling, or is this a legitimate area for investigation?
It's a legitimate area of investigation. I don't know how they're ever going to prove that, or find evidence that this took place. Maybe there's an email somewhere or something, but it's going to be a tough case to prove. If, however, there was a circumstance where Joe Biden was not aware of, and his aides used Autopen to affix his signature to a pardon or a piece of legislation, executive order, whatever, that he was not aware of, that's a huge scandal. And the American people deserve to know that if that actually happened. But again, I don't know that we'll ever get as far to find any evidence that that took place. So I think it's a legitimate area of inquiry, but I'm not sure how fruitful it's going to be.
Yeah, it would seem, Carl, that the smoking gun would be Biden saying, I never signed that or something like that. But short of that, how do you prove something like this?
Well, the Democrats, are being accused basically of covering up that Joe Biden was not fully cognizant, shouldn't have been president. That's the larger accusation here. What their response has been is, you know what, let's turn the page. And I think the Democrats' response is actually not bad politics. The longer we get into, Donald Trump's a very activist president. He's doing enough that we can be talking about that. So, I was a minority on this show. I'm not so interested in who left the cocaine in the White House, for instance, which proves that I could never have worked for a tabloid, I guess. But this is a little.
It just shows that your journalistic skills may be just not up to the moment. I mean, come on, man, that's a great story.
I was considered a young reporter, a sensationalist crime reporter. I ended up working in Washington for National Journal, a very staid, respectable policy magazine. So maybe that rubbed off on me. But the larger issue here is, was this elder abuse? Were people taking advantage of Biden? There's some evidence for that. There's evidence on the other side by Biden himself. And I think you got a glimpse of how he would respond to any inquiry like that. He gave a talk last week, and he was talking about, he was asked about these Democrats who criticized him for not stepping down sooner and then kind of manipulating the situation so Kamala Harris got the nomination. And he said, well, I would have beat them if they had run against me, and that's why they didn't run against me. And he sounded very cogent, by the way. So I don't mean to sound like my friend Maria Cardona, but let's maybe turn the page is the right instinct here.
Well, I think I kind of agree with you and I disagree with you. I think that the cocaine story interests me. I think it should interest everybody. But this DocuSign thing, Tom, it does seem to me that because it's so difficult to prove, it does seem that it's kind of going down a road that's not going to lead anywhere. And if you're doing a congressional investigation or you're the Justice Department, is that really how you want to spend your time and how you want what you want the public to focus on? Because this DocuSign Autopen, but I was going to say, like, we all use DocuSign in our private lives. We're not the presidents of the United States, but it kind of makes sense that he doesn't sign everything personally, and other presidents have used it. I mean, they are focusing on the pardons for his brothers, his sister, their spouses, and his son, which I would think he knew about all those pardons, whether he used the Autopen or not.
I agree with that. I agree with pretty much everything. However, as I said, if something like that did happen, it's a huge scandal. And therefore, I think it's a legitimate thing to inquire about and see if there's any evidence that occurred. We do know that there were a number of very close aides in the White House that were lying to reporters, lying to Democrats, covering this up to the best of their ability, despite the fact that it was pretty clear to everybody that he was, struggling with his physical and mental decline, especially over the last couple of years. So we know that these people sort of arrogated all this power to themselves. And so it doesn't seem like that far of a stretch if, Jake Sullivan was like, oh, I'm just going to, have put Biden's signature on this, order or this thing, or Steve Ricchetti or any of these folks, because they've proven already that they were more interested in keeping power and keeping control than they were with telling the truth. And so we can't trust these people at all.
Carl, to this larger question of Biden's competence, there is an argument to be made, and I never worked on the Hill, but my wife did, and I know a lot of people like you guys do who were staff aides and that sort of thing. And part of what you do is you try to make your boss look good. You cover up for any shortcomings that he may have. It just goes with the job. So there is an argument that these staffers were, to large part, just doing what staffers do if they were covering for him. The guy who I want to hear from is Kevin O'Connor, who's the doctor, because it seems to me he's got, he has a different role. He is supposed to be reporting on the president's health, I guess.
Well, I inferred that Dr. O'Connor covered up the prostate cancer. I don't know that's true, but that's a reasonable assumption. And I think my guess is he's going to be subpoenaed and talk about this, Andy. But you think in terms, this was a very bitter campaign, and on both sides. And Trump came in, and so was the 2020 election. And we don't usually have presidents who run and say, the incumbent president is the worst president in history, and he hates the country, and he hates you. And believe me, the Democrats gave as good as they took on that score. And they come in, Kash Patel, the Attorney General, these people, new CIA director, if they're tasked with rooting out basically political favoritism, cronyism, where the intelligence community had been weaponized in a partisan way so that they could put out this completely phony letter that they thought the Hunter Biden laptop was evidence of Russian disinformation. The Trump people want to correct that. That's a long overdue correction. It's important. But the vendetta aspect is a little different, because my question is, where does it end? Suppose, I'm going to deprive Tom of winning the drinking game. Suppose Gretchen Whitmer is the next president of the United States. And
not a supposition Carl's comfortable with, but go ahead.
Right. I have nothing against her at all. Anyway, then is she supposed to, and then her base will clamor to investigate Jared Kushner's business deals and Trump's business deals and Don Jr.'s business deals. I mean, this thing, whoever thinks that they have the last word here, and it constantly escalates, this partisanship. And so I'm almost pulling for some sort of moratorium. Okay, let's stop the clock and say, all right, we're going to go forward here. We're going to do real policy. We're not going to just do stuff that makes the other side look bad in terms of the investigative process. And the Trump administration hardly started this. I mean, when I first got to Washington years ago, John Dingell, who ran the Oversight Committee in the House, would routinely subject Republicans from the White House to these like Spanish Inquisition type methods. But it's continually escalated to the point where the government, that's not why people vote for these people, is to write scores and even up to invite them. It's National Journal, man. Policy. It's policy.
Tom,
you're conflating some issues, Carl. I mean, it's one thing to say, well, what Hunter Biden did or Jared Kushner does after they leave office, if they use their connections like Kushner did to land a sweet deal with the Saudi sovereign wealth fund or whatever, is that ethical? Maybe not. Is it something that is worth pursuing? No, not necessarily. Hunter Biden was in office. I mean, Joe Biden was in office and Hunter Biden was trading on his name and trading access to him. That's completely different. That deserves investigation, in my opinion. And if something like that is happening with the Trump family and the Trump administration, that should be investigated too. This idea that if there was some sort of Autopen that was used, and that to me would be worth investigating and knowing whether Biden knew exactly what he was signing. In particular, we're talking about these pardons, and I agree with Andy. I'm sure he probably was aware if he was pardoning his son and issuing all these preemptive pardons. But nevertheless, to me, that's something that is worthy of investigation. And if the next administration, if Trump pardons a bunch of people on his way out the door and uses Autopen, and there are questions about whether he knew about it or someone abused that privilege, and without him knowing, I would want that investigated too. So I don't buy the idea that like these things aren't worth investigating and it's going to lead to a slippery slope and all that stuff. I mean, again, let's just have the same standards, whether it's Republican or Democrat, and it's all about when they're in office and what they're doing while they're in office. Everything that happens after that, I agree with you. I don't want to be weaponizing the federal government to chase down, stuff that happens after they leave office.
Okay. Well, let's change topics here. I want to talk about Tom Homan. That's Trump's border czar. He was on Hannity last night on Fox News, and he warned of what he called an imminent terrorist attack. Here's just some of what he said.
It's coming. I mean, why did 2 million illegal aliens pay more to get away? They could have paid half of what they paid, cross the border, turn yourself into a border patrol agent, get released that same day, get a free airline ticket to the city of their choice, get a free hotel room, get 3 meals a day, plus free medical care and work authorization. 2 million people paid more to get away. They didn't want to be vetted. They didn't want to be fingerprinted. Why? So I'm convinced something's coming unless we can find them.
So, Carl, he's saying that these 2 million gotaways are a threat. What do you make of the statement? It's getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, that doesn't mean there's 2 million terrorists in the country, but what's been this attack on peaceful Jews in Boulder, Colorado, has really made you wonder. And if you're not wondering, your head's in the sand. How many people out? This guy was seems like a self-radicalized, disorganized madman. But how many people are out there who have this hate in their heart, who are organized, who infiltrated the country? Maybe sent here by ISIS or Hamas, or maybe not. Maybe formed relationship here. But this idea that all these attacks we've seen, Tom mentioned yesterday. I mean, three gruesome attacks. He tried to firebomb the governor of Pennsylvania in the mansion with his family there at Seder dinner. These are horrific attacks. It's like a pogrom against Jews. And they have a convenient pretext, that it's Zionism or it's Israel. It's all about Gaza. Of course it isn't. But this is worrisome. And when he said this yesterday, it kind of chilled me a bit. I think he's exaggerating for effect. There's not 2 million of these people, but as we learned in 9/11, all it takes is 20. Yeah.
Well, Carl, what it made me think of, and other people have thought this as well, is, and Carl's right, I think the Boulder attack and these anti-Semitic attacks are horrific, and they're worrisome, but equally worrisome is this Ukrainian drone attack on the Russian airfields, because we know that the Chinese, for instance, have bought farmland near these Air Force bases. But apparently you don't have to do that because the Ukrainians just rolled these trucks right up next to these airfields. So how vulnerable are our strategic bombers, our shipyards? We've got these cargo ships that come into port. So sort of have this combination of the anti-Jewish rhetoric. You've got these immigrants who are illegals who have come into the country. And now we have this sort of proven technology of drones that can really be sort of, what we call asymmetrical warfare. I mean, they took out a third of the strategic bombing force with about $1 million worth of drones, it looks like.
Well, on 9/11, they took out the World Trade Center, nearly the Pentagon, and almost the Capitol with box cutters. I mean, we are in this era of asymmetrical warfare, but the drones, I'm with you, Andy. That sort of seems to ratchet up the entire the whole issue, doesn't it?
Yeah. Tom, what do you think?
To a new level.
It's scary stuff. Yeah, I agree with Carl. I mean, I don't think Tom Homan was trying to suggest that all 2 million of these gotaways were terrorists, but if 10% of them are, if 1% of them are, then and this is the thing about terror prevention. The Bush administration used to say this, and they said it when they were passing all of these, laws to sort of spy on Americans and all that. You have to have 100% success rate. If you don't have 100% success rate, people are going to die. And that's exactly right. I mean, we've been able to thwart some of these attacks that have, happened over the last few years, but by and large, we are vulnerable. I mean, that's part of living in an open society. But again, we don't have to, the Constitution is not a suicide pact. We don't have to be letting in millions and millions and millions of people year after year after year without having any idea who they are or where they're coming from or what they're going to do once they get here. And I think that was the argument that one of the arguments that the Trump administration made. It was successful and persuasive, and now they are trying to make good on that promise. But as Tom Homan said, it's scary, and it keeps them up at night, and it should keep all of us up at night.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, we're going to have to take a quick break here. You're listening to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. I'm Andrew Walworth. I'm here with Tom and Carl. Don't go away. We'll be back after these words. Welcome back to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. I'm Andrew Walworth. I'm here with Tom and Carl. And Carl, Senator Chuck Schumer was on Morning Joe yesterday, and he said that Americans deserve an apology from Elon Musk for DOJ. He said in part this. He said he ought to be apologizing to the American people for what he has done. That's what we need, an apology, and him to tell Trump to undo the damage he has done. He cites firing employees, decimation of agencies like the FTC and the FAA. Carl, what do you make of Schumer's request for an apology from Elon Musk?
I don't think Elon Musk or the President Trump feel that they need to apologize for DOJ. I think that Elon Musk was sobered by how hard it is to effectively cut government spending. I think he's maybe, I think he's a little bit what's that word? Chastened. But, when a partisan Democrat who's been in Washington, how long's Chuck Schumer been there, Tom? I mean, all his adult
45
life.
years.
Yeah. 45 years. So, Elon Musk said he wanted to cut $2 trillion from like annual spending. Well, he couldn't do that. I think the number is going to be about 200 million. It's not nothing, but I guess the rejoinder, if you're a deficit hawk to Chuck Schumer, is that, okay, Elon Musk can apologize, but you apologize first because the federal debt when you got to Washington was like $2 trillion, and now it's 36.
1 trillion.
1 trillion. Okay, now it's 36 trillion. So you go first, Charlie.
Tom, you see it that way?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. The idea that Elon Musk, needs to apologize to the country for trying to curtail spending. The guy's the richest man on the planet, left his work to come basically work for free, dedicate himself to trying to help stave off some sort of fiscal Armageddon. And, what he got for his efforts was, a kick in the pants and by the media and the Democrats and, liberals firebombing Tesla dealerships around the country. And I mean, it was just the sort of antibody reaction of the establishment and the status quo to any effort to actually, cut spending was shocking and remarkable, even to people, I think, who are in politics or have been in politics. I mean, Elon Musk may have been unaware, but he may have been a real neophyte when it came to working inside Washington. But even for folks who have been there for a long time, I think we're probably shocked at the way that a lot of these folks responded. And Carl's right.
Tom,
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
Look,
Tom,
Chuck Schumer's been in office for 45 years in the House and the Senate. Under his leadership, under his watch, the national deficit has gone from 1 trillion to 36 trillion and growing rapidly as we speak. And so, who's supposed to apologize to whom for the damage that's been done to the country and to future generations? I think Chuck Schumer needs to look in the mirror.
Well, one quick thing on that, though, Andy. In defense of the Democrats, I don't want to defend Chuck Schumer specifically. That's hard to do. But Tom and I were at the Reagan Library on Friday, as you know, and we heard Jamie Dimon speak. And he talked about how the cuts could have gone. And he basically laid out a scenario where the department heads, cabinet secretaries, are told, all right, bring us your plan. Let's have a plan to cut. Bring it to us in 6 months, which is kind of word for word what I said on the show several times that I think should have been done. And Tom gave me a look. He was hoping I wasn't listening, and he gave me a wry smile. Elon Musk did not go about this right, in my opinion. And what I think he could apologize for is some of the really cruel and hateful and gratuitous rhetoric towards federal employees writ large.
Okay.
We know there's fat in the government. But we also know that many of these people are just the most dedicated public servants who really.
What cruel and hateful rhetoric did he use?
Yeah.
What?
All right,
What?
Look, I don't want to talk about the. I don't want to talk about the.
Send an email asking people to like send. Tell me 5 things you've done.
Yeah.
Here's what I want to ask: is that because beyond the rhetoric, Elizabeth Warren is out today with a report. It's titled "Special Interests over the Public Interest: Elon Musk's 130 Days in the Trump Administration." And cleverly, she has listed 130 actions by Musk that his companies and his family members that she says, quote, raise questions about corruption, ethics, and conflict of interest. So, Tom, what about that? This idea that he was featherbedding the whole time and basically out for his own good.
It's preposterous. I mean, the guy lost billions of dollars, right, in shareholder value at Tesla by getting involved in the political scrum in the first place.
But he didn't plan that, I don't think.
No, but I mean, this idea that he's worth $150 billion or something. I mean, it's this absurd amount of money. And the idea that he thought, well, I'll just go do this because I'm trying to enrich myself. I mean, it's absurd. And it's hard to take from Elizabeth Warren. I mean, someone who, has misrepresented herself, and she's made a lot of money too, by the way, over time.
You're not a fan of Liz Warren?
I'm not a huge fan of Elizabeth Warren. I'm not a huge fan of anybody who's really sort of sanctimonious and comes up with these things as if she's pure as the driven snow, and Elon Musk is somehow this terrible, evil actor. I mean, it's all caricature. It's all ridiculousness.
She has a history of caring about consumers. All the job she wanted was head of the consumer, whatever thing that they created, Consumer
Financial Protection Bureau.
Yeah. They wouldn't give it to the Republicans. So it was like Trump getting dissed at that White House Correspondents' Dinner by Obama and then running for president. So they wouldn't give her a job. So she's fine. I'll run for Senate. And she won. So the Republicans only have themselves to blame for Liz Warren even being in the Senate, Tom.
All right. Well, I want to talk about this piece that I think Carl found. It was in the Washington Post. It's about Trump's use of social media. And this is according to the Washington Post. Trump has posted 2,262 times to Truth Social in the 132 days since his inauguration. That's 3 times the number of posts during his first administration in the same time frame. Apparently, there's this small team that does this. It's led by Dan Scavino. He's an aide and then there's this aide, I guess, who trails him around with a small printer and hard copies of news items. But the late night and early tweets, Carl, according to the Washington Post, are Trump. He's up, typing away. So what do you make of his use of social media?
Well, before I tell you what I think of his use of social media, let's think about it. This man is the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces, the president, acting basically president and CEO of the Kennedy Center, because he put himself in that job, chairman of the board, and the de facto baseball commissioner, because he got Pete Rose, So he's a busy guy. And then to think that he's having all these jobs and then getting up at 5 a.m. and retweeting people who I'm still using tweet as the verb, even though Twitter's gone and this is Truth Social. He's got like 10 million followers on Truth Social, I think. And he had 100 million on Twitter before they kicked him off. But his stuff gets amplified all over the world. The Post pointed that he gets a lot more than 10 million views. That he's doing this the Biden one that he retweeted was somebody said that Biden like died in 2020 and was replaced by a robot, and he retweeted that. Now, even at 4 a.m, you don't think a 78-year-old man probably has to get up to pee, at that age. But he's tweeting out this stuff. I'm thinking he's being funny, and I hope that he's being funny. Let me put it that way. But it just doesn't seem like the president has more things he ought to be doing.
Tom?
Well, I mean, one of the, having been on Twitter and X now for almost 20 years, and having watched people over time, one of the problems that people often run into is they get drunk late at night and they drunk tweet. We know that's not the issue with Trump. He doesn't drink. He doesn't do drugs. He's not high. He's just wild. I mean,
he's high on life, Tom.
He's high on life. He doesn't sleep a lot. So some of this stuff, yeah. And one of the documentaries showed him sitting in that was filmed during the election, showed him in the, I think it was a hotel room or something with his staff. And there was an aide right next to him typing, and he was basically dictating the tweet or the post to them. So he does this a bunch of different ways. And some of them, are sort of rapid fire kind of stuff that's pre-planned and already canned. But some of the stuff is spontaneous, and it's also like substantial. I mean, he'll announce things that are of global news value, have huge implications around the world, and he'll just announce that right in a post on True Social, and then sit back and watch the world react to it. So it's a new form of communication. It's one that, he's utilized in a way that no other president has. I mean, Obama was on Twitter, but I mean, he would just post pictures of himself on every single holiday talking about how great he was. Do you guys remember that? We used to joke about that quite often. But yeah, so look, I don't know that the next president's gonna operate like this. Although if JD Vance, I mean, he's in that same mold, and I think that as we get on, AOC is very active on social media. A lot of politicians are now very active on social media. It's the new normal.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's. I was sort of stunned at the number of
it's a lot
of posts. It sounds like a lot.
I post a few times a day. That's a big number.
Tom, you post you probably post more than anyone in my immediate circle. But they do talk about the dopamine effect that you get from reactions to your posts and that sort of thing. It is kind of addicting. And
Trump has always loved, the media coverage and reading about himself. And I'm sure he does get a certain amount of satisfaction out of, reading responses or watching people respond to what he posts.
So we got to break it here, but I do want to say my favorite recent post. He called Bruce Springsteen a dried out prune of a rocker. And then he went on to say Taylor Swift was no longer hot. So
the greatest post tweet ever is still Kofevi.
Kofevi, right.
Which no one still knows what that means.
Right. Yeah. All right. You're listening to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. I'm Andrew Walworth. I'm here with Tom and Carl. Don't go away. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. I'm Andrew Walworth. I'm here with Tom and Carl. And Tom, lawmakers in red states are taking more control over public colleges and universities. There was an article about that on Real Clear Politics today. Ohio, Utah, and Florida are changing requirements to focus on Western Civ and civics. And they're trying to crop out classes centered on race, gender, and things like that from the core requirements. According to the AFT, there are at least 29 bills in 18 states that are trying to reorient what is taught. So, Tom, is this the other side of the war against elite private institutions? And what do you think the effect is for the country?
Well, I think, first of all, I think it's good to have, basically require Western Civ in public universities, and states have the right to do that. And that's fine. And private universities, I think, could do, I'm not sure how much control, the legislatures have over that. But it occurred to me that, we're going to have basically the red-blue education system now, right? So you go to red states, you go to, public universities there, you're going to be taught Western Civ. And if you go to public universities or even private universities, I guess, in blue states, you'll learn, you'll have your gender studies and all those things. So I think it's going to further divide the country. It'll be an interesting question when, like, for example, there are a lot of kids in my state and which is a very liberal state, and a lot of the kids, particularly in the Chicagoland area, probably come from liberal households, but want to go to schools in the South where it's sunny and warm, and there's SEC football and the like. And so it'll be interesting to see how parents react to that, and how the students react to that. But I don't think it's a bad thing if these are folks in states responding to their constituents, and so if they institute change the curriculum to be more focused on civics, I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
Yeah, but Carl, what about academic freedom and independence for professors? And do we really want politicians, either from the left or the right, dictating what's taught on college campuses?
Well, I think the view of at least a plurality of Americans is that the university professors and the university presidents had their chance and they blew it, and they need some help.
That's right.
They're proselytizing people to hate America, view everything as racist, and have this bizarre oppressor, colonizer, zero-sum game view of looking at the world. They don't teach history. They don't teach American history. And it's all about, diversity and equity and post-colonialism and whatever they call it. The initial thing when you think of that, though, Andy, is you're worried that it'll further divide the country. You'll have two sort of sets of people who have completely different perspectives and have different educations, liberals and conservatives, but I think the problem might be worse on the liberal side in this case, because, one of the theorists of critical race theory is a tenured professor at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. He's not, there'll still be people teaching that at these schools, but they'll also be teaching what they used to teach. And I, just thinking of it initially, you'll get a better education. You have a more well-rounded education at these universities that have re-embraced teaching American civics, how laws are made, what the good and bad of the country, how we liberated Europe, good things that not everything's through a prism of race, but they'll still have these liberal professors teaching them things. So I think that there'll be some pressure, and it'll be subtle at first on the woke universities to catch up and to match this and to re-embrace things that they used to teach. Harvard wasn't always a hotbed, a pro-Hamas hotbed. That's a relatively recent historic phenomenon.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to get this in because I wanted to talk about Carl's favorite topic, artificial intelligence. It seems to be our obsession these days on the show. This piece that Tom found was really interesting. It was from the New York Post. And it says AI may devastate the Earth's population, but not through some sort of Skynet event or the kind of things that Carl is worried about. They put it this way. They say currently techsperts, that's their play on experts, techsperts, fear that AI is rendering humanity obsolete in every sector, from law to academia and even romance. As a result, they suggest birth rates will plunge, as people will be hesitant to have kids who are destined to be unemployed, especially given the exorbitant cost of rearing children. So, Carl, they say the population can drop from 8 billion to just 100 million by 2300. Something to add to your list of worries about AI, or do you think this is not something that you're going to worry about?
If that were realistic, if that were really to happen, something like 1/3 of the people in the world would then be members of the Church of Latter-day Saints. That's, in other words, this strikes me as unlikely. There are about 17.5 million Mormons in the world now that, under that scenario, they would double their population. That's my prediction, while the rest of the world would shrink from 8 billion to, what is that?
100 million.
Yeah, 70 million non-Mormons.
70 million,
So my guess is Utah would be the capital of the world.
Well, why not? Tom, are you worried?
No, not so much. Look, I do think the birth rates around the country, around the globe, are an issue, are a problem. I mean, people are having less kids. That trend has continued over time, and we're not even at replacement rates in a lot of these countries, and so that's something that I think a lot of countries have to deal with, including ours. And but the idea that we're going to go from 8 billion to 100 million, that seems extreme. And then listen,
it seems
by
ludicrous.
2100, Elon's going to have us, on Mars, if not before that. So we'll have maybe we'll send all the Mormons to Mars and they can just populate that planet, Carl. Leave us to wither away and die down here.
Well, I tell you,
I've got 5 kids. I'm doing my share. So
that's true. But the Walworth household is above replacement. As
mine too.
So we're all doing our part. Replacement, for people know, is 2.1 births. In other words, you've got to have 2.1
per family.
Per family.
Per couple.
Per couple, in order to keep things going. We're below that in many countries right now, and the UN predicts now by 2030 we'll be below it on a worldwide basis. So the trends are not going in the right direction. I don't know. I found this article, Tom, more convincing maybe than you guys do, because when I talk to young people, I do hear a lot of sort of, they can't afford a house. They don't want to start a family. They think they freeze their eggs. They do all these things, all of which will contribute to a lower birth rate going forward. And it seems like if you have the kind of disruption that AI is going to create in terms of the economy and jobs, that just puts more fuel to the trend.
Maybe. On the other hand, you think that folks, do you guys ever see the movie WALL-E, right?
Yeah.
Where the people are all in this
great film, yeah.
Yeah. They're all in this giant like cruise ship, spaceship, and they all move around on beach chairs because they're so fat and soft, and they can't, like AI is going to make us, I think, more comfortable, softer than ever. And as a species, because we'll just be able to do we're already to the point where there's very little hardship, which is why we have all these manufactured controversies, because people have too much time on their hands. We're too comfortable. We don't know what real hardship is. I think AI is going to accelerate that to the point where maybe people will get bored of, or maybe they won't have kids because it's too expensive, or maybe they'll have so much time on their hands, there'll be a baby boom because they got nothing else to do.
All right. Well, on that hopeful note from Tom Bevan, we're going to leave it. You're listening to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. I'm Andrew Walworth. I'm here with Tom and Carl, but don't go away. We'll be back right after these words.
Welcome to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RCP. Broadcasting from the Reagan National Economic Forum at the Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California. And I'm joined this segment by Doug Kelly. He is the CEO of the American Edge Project. Doug, thanks for your time. Thanks for having me. All right, what is the American Edge Project? So the American Edge Project, we're a coalition of about 24 different groups. What we do is we fight for America's innovation lead in technology, especially against China, because at the end of the day, technology is the backbone for our national security, our economic growth, and our values. And it really matters which country builds the future. And so how long is this project? When did it start? And why, how did you come to be part of it? Yeah. So American Edge has been around for about 5 years. Okay? And we came about because we wanted to make sure that policymakers understood the importance of American technological innovation to our overall success, right? Sometimes people take it for granted that, we're just a great innovation leader, but China has a very detailed plan to dethrone America as innovation leader. We wanted to make sure that elected officials, the public at large, understood what the stakes were and what they could do about it to help us win. What are the stakes? We're out here. There's been a lot of discussion in this forum all day long about China, AI, technological progress. In your mind, what are the stakes? Sure, the stakes are incredibly high. So China has a vision for technology that is built on censorship, control, and surveillance, right? And in their technology, those values, those CCP values, are built in throughout this technology. Whereas America, our technology is built on opportunity, freedom, free expression, right? That's the values that we build in our technology. And so as we develop AI models, we develop quantum computing, we develop other type of technologies are advanced and move them around the globe, the world's got a choice. It can be our technology, which is going to advance freedom, or it can be China's, which is going to restrict it. And so we try to make policymakers understand that you can't do short-sighted things in terms of regulation or excessive onerous things that undermine our tech innovators, because that's going to hurt our ability to win this tech race.
Well, and I guess that's so how do you feel our policy is toward China? And if you could wave a magic wand, what would you do differently?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. I think President Trump has got the right kind of view of China. They are our top competitor, that we have to go all in and beat them on AI, and that we need to do whatever it takes to beat them. And I think some of the challenges that we see, right, there's some people on the kind of far left and the far right that want to, quote unquote, go after technology because of some sin perceived or real or otherwise, right? But they forget that these folks are our top innovators, but also some of the top funders of small little tech companies who are driving innovation here. I mean, there's probably 10 or 15 small tech companies out here that are funded by the larger technology companies. So all of those things matter to boost our innovation ecosystem. Big tech, small tech, mergers and acquisitions policy, fair use policy, investment capital, all those things that create America's uniqueness. That's what's at stake here. So if we double down on those things, we can make winning the AI race our modern day moonshot moment, the same way Kennedy helped deliver us to the moon and back.
So we've had a lot of discussion about AI, and Carl Cannon, our Washington bureau chief, is always very he's skeptical of it. He thinks and there is this, how good is AI? Obviously, it can do a lot of wonderful things, but also comes with great risks and can be used probably for a lot of not great things. What's your view of AI? Do you see it as an unalloyed good for America?
Well, that's even why it's more important that America wins the AI race, right? Because China has no constraints on theirs, right? And they're aggressively exporting it to 155 countries through their Belts and Road Initiative across the globe. And so that's why we have to make sure that American AI becomes the global standard. For me, when I look at it, like, I don't want to poke fun at Carl, right? But he might have been one of those guys that in the early days said, hey, you know what? This internet's not going to go anywhere. Well, it fundamentally transformed e-commerce. It fundamentally transformed how we communicate, right? And we're still in the earliest days of AI.
Yeah.
When I look at it, AI's upside is that it can help prevent and cure these diseases faster than ever before. It can help accelerate student-based learning so that if you grow up in a rural area like I did, you can basically have access to a tutor who knows the entire internet and can help you develop customized tutoring things. Mm-hmm. It's also great for small business and e-commerce to help these small businesses become even more productive and more competitive, because small businesses employ half the people in the United States. So I look at it as a tool that helps accelerate human development and learning, not as anything catastrophic or threatening. We have to build wisely about this, but we can't overreact about AI's potential in the same way that, say, like Europe is doing, right? Europe is taking themselves completely out of the artificial intelligence game by having a very heavy-handed regulatory regime that's basically hurting their tech companies. So their tech companies are actually moving over here because they're like, we want to go to America where we can grow, where we can develop, we need access to capital.
But what about the arguments that, AI is going to put a lot of people out of work in very short order?
Yep.
Particularly people that operate in the knowledge economy, right? Like journalists, for example, or paralegals, or, currently AI is helping them do their job, but very soon AI might be able to just do their jobs altogether. That could displace a lot of people very quickly.
That's the studies that I've read don't necessarily say that.
Okay.
They say the AI is going to be a jobs multiplier, right? Some people, they won't lose their job to AI. They'll lose their job to somebody who knows how to integrate AI into their work stream so they become more productive overall. And so for journalists, for researchers and others, if you think about AI can help you develop theses faster for different pieces that you write. So you could do 25 hours of research and find, okay, I think these 2 points can actually make up my core argument. Or you can work with an AI engine and say, hey, I figured out in 35 minutes that this thesis makes sense. Let me dig down deeper into it and see if we can come up with a great piece or a compelling thing. So it's an accelerator of human potential.
We got just a couple minutes left. And so tell me, like,
American Edge project, looking ahead next like 1, 3, 5 years. What are you hoping to accomplish? What are your goals?
Right. Well, look, at the end of the day, we are barely ahead of China when it comes to AI model development, sophistication. But it's not just that's who has the most sophisticated models. It's which country is spreading their technology further and faster across the globe. Which one is accelerating the adoption of it at home? And so for us, we say job one is to make sure that Congress doesn't pass anything silly that hurts our ability to innovate.
I feel like Congress has a good grasp on the issue.
I think they're getting a better grasp on the issue, right? I think they understand the stakes with China, but I still think that they don't fully understand what does it mean to have a national innovation strategy. If we have a national innovation strategy that says, make sure we have the right policies that help accelerate innovation. If we have the right infrastructure of data, infrastructure, and electricity, if we have the right kind of talent development pipeline to teach kids STEM, to reskill people who may be shifting in the job to become more high tech, and then do we have a strategy to spread it around the globe, our technology? That national innovation strategy is going to benefit every single industry we have. So it'll be an accelerator for all of America's industry. And that leads to job growth. That makes our competitiveness better. And so that's really what we'll focus on over the next couple of years. Make sure nothing bad passes, make sure the laws that accelerate innovation are passed, and really become an evangelist on the importance of winning this race against China.
All right. Very good. We will leave it there. Doug Kelly, CEO of American Edge Project. Doug, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right.